August 7th, 1944. Near Avranches, France. The hedgerows are still smoking. Burned-out Sherman tanks line the narrow Norman roads like broken teeth. The air smells of wet earth, cordite, and diesel fumes. Somewhere in the distance, artillery rolls like a coming storm. Inside a forward command tent, Lieutenant Colonel Creighton Abrams studies a map under flickering lantern light. The red arrows marking the German front are beginning to bend. Outside, engines idle. Hundreds of them. M4 Shermans, M5 Stuart light tanks, half-tracks loaded with infantry from the 4th Armored Division, fuel trucks rumbling impatiently. And standing beside his Jeep, ivory-handled pistols gleaming even in the dim light, is Lieutenant General George S. Patton. He does not look tired. He looks impatient. The breakout from Normandy had begun only days earlier after Operation Cobra tore open the German line. Allied planners expected a cautious expansion of the breach, consolidation, supply buildup, measured exploitation. Patton had other ideas. Move, he tells his corps commanders. Move until you run out of gasoline, then move on foot. Across the German high command, the tone is dismissive. Field Marshal Gunther von Kluge reports to OKW that American forces are advancing, yes, but lack the discipline of German panzer doctrine. They are impulsive, one German operations officer notes. Their general is theatrical. In Berlin, the assessment is colder. Patton is bold, yes, but bold men overextend. Bold men make mistakes. Bold men can be encircled. German doctrine has seen this before. They believe they understand blitzkrieg. They invented it. What they do not understand is that Patton has been studying them for years. Since North Africa, since Sicily, since he watched Rommel move faster than supply lines could justify. Patton learned one lesson. Speed is not recklessness. Speed is shock. By August 8th, 3rd Army is officially activated. Within 48 hours, it is not expanding a beachhead. It is racing across France. Columns stretch for miles, tanks, artillery, reconnaissance jeeps, infantry riding on armor, mechanics repairing vehicles without stopping the march. Dust rises so thick behind armored thrusts that German reconnaissance aircraft struggle to track them. Radio chatter fills the airwaves. Advance continues. Enemy withdrawing, resistance light, fuel critical. And still they move. German 7th Army units attempting to reform defensive lines near Le Mans find American spearheads already cutting behind them. Panzers redeploy, only to discover the Americans have shifted axis overnight. It feels wrong. It feels uncontrolled. It feels, from the German perspective, reckless. But from the American side, it feels like momentum. Soldiers later recall the sensation. You weren't fighting for villages anymore. You were outrunning the war itself. German commanders request permission to regroup. Permission is delayed. Hitler insists on holding ground. Patton doesn't give them time to obey. In just 10 days, 3rd Army advances more than 200 miles. 200. German staff officers begin to compare notes. This is not methodical, one writes. This is pursuit. And pursuit is dangerous because it creates panic. Patton's armored columns do not pause for perfect encirclements. They punch, shift, punch again, shift again, like a boxer who refuses to let his opponent breathe. German communications begin to fracture. Rail lines are cut, fuel depots overrun. Rear headquarters suddenly become frontline targets. The Wehrmacht had prepared to defend against Anglo-American caution. They were not prepared for American velocity. By mid-August, the Falaise pocket begins to close. German formations are trapped. Burning vehicles clog roads. Columns of retreating soldiers stretch for miles under constant air attack. And still, Patton pushes. Allied planners grow nervous. Supply lines are stretched thin. Fuel trucks are racing just to keep up. General Omar Bradley warns that overextension could be catastrophic. Patton listens. Then he keeps moving. Because he understands something the German generals are just beginning to feel. Speed is not a tactic, it is a weapon. And he is wielding it with surgical aggression. The laughter in German headquarters begins to fade. They no longer mock, they calculate, and the calculations are beginning to fail. August 19th, 1944, near Le Mans, France. The night sky pulses red. Fuel trucks burn along a crossroads west of the city, black smoke rising in columns so thick they blot out the moon. German artillery thumps in the distance, scattered, uncoordinated, desperate. Inside a moving M4 Sherman, Sergeant Walter Klein braces himself against the steel hull as the tank lurches over a ditch. The intercom crackles. Keep moving. No halt. Repeat, no halt. They haven't halted in 30 hours. The men of the 4th Armored Division are beyond exhaustion, eyes bloodshot, hands blistered from reloading ammunition and refueling vehicles in the dark. Mechanics ride on engine decks, tightening bolts while engines idle, and still the column advances. Ahead of them, the German 7th Army is unraveling. What was meant to be a fighting withdrawal has become something else, something uglier. Congestion, panic. The Falaise pocket is collapsing. German units attempting to escape east toward the Seine are finding American armor where there should have been open roads. Patton has done something German doctrine considers reckless. He has split his armored spearheads into multiple thrusts, sending combat commands racing in divergent directions. From a textbook perspective, this invites defeat in detail. From a battlefield perspective, it creates confusion. At 0240 hours, reconnaissance elements from Combat Command A encounter a column of retreating German vehicles, horse-drawn artillery mixed with half-tracks, fuel wagons, infantry stumbling through mud. The Americans open fire. Illumination rounds burst overhead. The field becomes a furnace. A German lieutenant later writes that the Americans fell upon us like cavalry. There is no organized counterattack. There is only escape. By dawn, the roads are clogged with destroyed transport, twisted axles, shattered wheels, bodies lying where they fell. Patton does not slow to consolidate prisoners. He pushes beyond them, because his objective is not destruction, it is collapse. In Allied headquarters, the mood shifts. General Omar Bradley studies situation maps with growing unease. The red arrows marking Third Army's advance are extending far beyond initial projections. Fuel reports arrive hourly. Consumption is catastrophic. One staff officer calculates that if supply convoys are interrupted for even 48 hours, entire armored divisions could grind to a halt, stranded deep in hostile territory. Bradley turns to a logistics officer. How long can they maintain this tempo? The answer is not reassuring, but when asked whether to restrain Patton, Bradley hesitates. Because every hour the Germans attempt to reorganize, they fail. Every defensive line they attempt to form is outflanked before it stabilizes. Patton's genius is not merely speed, it is unpredictability. He does not follow roads logically. He feints west, then pivots east overnight. He appears to threaten Paris, then drives toward the Loire. German radio intercepts reveal increasing confusion. American armor sighted north. Correction, south. Negative west of our position. Reports contradict each other. Maps become obsolete within hours. August 21st. Chartres. Church bells that have not rung freely in 4 years begin to ring again. American tanks roll past stunned civilians who stare as if witnessing something impossible. They expected siege warfare. They expected weeks. Instead, the Americans arrive like a storm front. Patton himself enters the city briefly, standing in his open jeep as crowds gather. He does not linger. He turns to his aide. Forward, because celebration is delay, and delay is oxygen. German Field Marshal Walter Model, newly assigned to stabilize the Western Front, studies the situation grimly. Model is not dismissive like others. He is methodical. He understands defensive warfare. He sees what is happening. The Americans are not attacking lines. They are dissolving structure. They are severing communications, overrunning rear headquarters, forcing withdrawals before positions can be fortified. Model requests authority to withdraw to the Seine in an orderly fashion. Hitler refuses. No retreat. Orders are clear. Hold ground. Counterattack. Stabilize. But stabilizing requires time, and Patton is denying them time. By August 25th, Third Army has advanced so rapidly that even Allied air support struggles to keep pace. Forward observers report friendly aircraft attacking roads hours after American armor has already passed through. Coordination phrase, the war is moving too fast. At the Seine crossings, German engineers attempt to destroy bridges. American armored units appear before demolition charges are properly set. Gunfire erupts across riverbanks. Smoke drifts low over water. Shermans fire across the river while engineers scramble to secure crossings intact. Each intact bridge is a gift of momentum. Each destroyed bridge is a minor inconvenience. Patton reroutes. He always reroutes. Inside German headquarters near Paris, a senior staff officer speaks bluntly. This is no longer a breakout. It is pursuit. Another adds quietly, if this continues, the Western Front ceases to exist. The laughter from Berlin has stopped. The tone has changed. They no longer speak of recklessness. They speak of velocity. And velocity terrifies planners because it compresses decision cycles. Orders arrive too late. Reserves move toward positions that no longer matter. Artillery fires on empty fields. The Americans are always somewhere else. August 28th, near the Meuse River, a column of Third Army tanks pauses briefly at dusk. Crews sit on hulls eating cold rations. Engines still idle. No one fully relaxes because they know what tomorrow holds. More movement, more fuel tension, more German units collapsing under pressure. Patton radios forward elements. Maintain contact. Keep them off balance. He does not speak of caution. He speaks of pressure because he understands a psychological truth. An army in retreat fears the future more than it fears the present. The German command structure is beginning to fracture under that fear. And Third Army is not done accelerating. August 29th, 1944, near Reims, France. Dawn breaks through a haze of dust and exhaust. A column of American half-tracks snakes along a narrow country road lined with poplar trees. Engines grind. Tracks clatter against cobblestone. The men riding atop the vehicles are silent, too tired to talk, too alert to relax. Captain James Hollister of the 5th Infantry Division wipes grime from his binocular lenses and scans the horizon. Smoke rises in multiple directions, some of it German, some of it American. The front no longer exists as a clean line. It is a moving fracture. By now, Patton's Third Army has outrun not only the Germans, but its own supply lines. Fuel trucks are days behind. Artillery ammunition is rationed. Tank crews siphon gasoline from disabled vehicles to keep spearheads alive. In one field outside Chalons, mechanics drain fuel from a wrecked Sherman using a rubber hose and a captured German jerry can. War at this speed is cannibalistic. You feed on yesterday's wreckage to move tomorrow. German high command is no longer laughing. Field Marshal Walter Model has taken direct control of shattered formations retreating toward the Seine River. He issues blunt instructions, form defensive groupings, delay, buy time. But delay requires terrain, cohesion, and command clarity. Patton is attacking all three. Rather than driving a single concentrated thrust, Third Army has spread across a broad front, forcing German commanders to guess where the true weight lies. Every time they commit reserves, Patton shifts pressure. At Epernay, American armored reconnaissance elements burst through what was supposed to be a reformed defensive line. German artillery pieces are abandoned mid-emplacement. A signals unit is overrun before it can transmit updated coordinates. One captured German major mutters during interrogation, "We could not establish a front. He was everywhere." August 30th, Verdun sector. The name Verdun still carries the weight of World War I, a place synonymous with attrition, trench warfare, slaughter. German planners assume the Americans will slow here. Verdun demands methodical preparation, artillery, infantry consolidation, bridging units. Instead, American armored columns bypass heavily fortified positions and cut eastward toward river crossings. They leave pockets of resistance isolated behind them. This is not a siege. It is a bypass. German officers trained in positional warfare are watching their carefully prepared lines dissolve without being directly attacked. The psychological effect is corrosive. A defensive line that is ignored feels weaker than one that is shattered. Inside Third Army headquarters, operations officers struggle to keep maps updated. The red grease pencil arrows extend faster than clerks can redraw them. A junior staff officer hesitates before speaking. "General, if we continue at this rate, we risk overextension." Patton does not raise his voice. He simply points to the map. Overextension is a problem when the enemy can strike back. He taps the cluster of collapsing German units near the river. They cannot. It is not arrogance. It is calculation. He knows German forces are retreating under chaos, not coordination. Strike now, and you multiply disorder. Pause, and you allow recovery. August 31st. The Seine River crossings. Smoke drifts over the water as German engineers attempt demolition. Explosions echo along the banks. But in multiple sectors, American armored units arrive before charges are properly set. Shermans fire across the river at retreating columns. Engineers sprint forward under small arms fire to secure bridgeheads. In one engagement near Montereau, a Sherman crew rams through a makeshift barricade of abandoned trucks. Tracks crushing twisted metal as infantry pour across behind them. The German retreat becomes a rout. Bridges collapse behind fleeing units, trapping formations west of the river. Those trapped are either captured or destroyed. Patton's blitz has not merely advanced, it has severed. September 1st, 1944, Paris is liberated, largely bypassed by Third Army spearheads. Patton does not linger. His focus is east, toward the Moselle, toward Germany itself. Fuel shortages are now critical. Convoys struggle along extended supply routes stretching back to Normandy beaches still congested with landing craft. Allied High Command debates redirecting fuel allocations to Montgomery's operations in the north. Logistics officers warn that Third Army may soon stall. But stall where? Deep inside France, with shattered German formations attempting to reorganize under pressure. Patton senses the moment narrowing. He pushes reconnaissance units farther than doctrine advises. He wants to know if the Germans can stand, or if they are still reeling. Intercepted German communications reveal frantic attempts to establish a coherent defensive front along the West Wall, the Siegfried Line. Concrete bunkers, dragon's teeth, pre-war fortifications, but fortifications require time to man, time to reinforce, time to coordinate artillery and reserves. Patton is trying to deny them that time. He orders rapid probes across the Moselle. Small armored elements dart forward, testing resistance. When opposition stiffens, they pull back, only to strike elsewhere. It is fencing at operational scale, thrust, withdraw, redirect. The Germans cannot determine the true axis of advance. September 3rd, near Nancy, a German regimental commander writes in his diary, "We are fighting a ghost. When we prepare for him in one sector, he appears in another." This is the turning point. The laughter in Berlin is gone. The tone is urgent. Hitler demands counterattacks. Model pleads for flexibility. Frontline commanders report depleted units, broken supply, exhausted men. And yet the American armor continues to appear, faster than anticipated, deeper than expected. But speed has consequences. Fuel gauges drop toward empty. Artillery units report dwindling shells. Infantry marches behind tanks with blistered feet and thinning numbers. Patton's gamble is reaching its edge. If momentum breaks now, German forces may finally stabilize. If it holds, the Rhine becomes visible on the horizon. And that river is not just a geographic objective. It is symbolic. Crossing it would signal that Germany itself is within reach. The question now is no longer whether Patton's blitz was reckless. It is whether it can sustain itself long enough to finish what it started. September 5th, 1944. Banks of the Moselle River near Pont-à-Mousson, France. Rain falls in a cold, steady sheet. Private First Class Raymond Keller of the 80th Infantry Division presses himself into wet earth as German 88mm shells tear the riverbank apart. Mud splashes into his mouth. The river in front of him churns, dark, swollen, indifferent. Across the water, German machine guns rake the shoreline. And for the first time in weeks, Patton's advance has stopped. The Seine had broken German cohesion. The Moselle would test American endurance. Field Marshal Walter Model understands something critical. Open maneuver warfare favors Patton. Rivers favor defense. He pulls battered divisions back toward fortified positions tied to the West Wall, the Siegfried Line, concrete pillboxes, pre-sighted artillery zones, interlocking fields of fire. This is not retreat anymore. This is resistance. Inside Third Army headquarters, the mood shifts. Maps are no longer covered with sweeping arrows. They are cluttered with contested crossings. Patton stands over a sand table lit by a single bulb. He listens as engineers report current speeds, bank gradients, German artillery density. Bridging equipment is limited. Fuel is critical. German resistance is stiffening. One corps commander suggests consolidating and waiting for resupply. Patton's jaw tightens. Waiting, he says quietly, is what they want. But even he knows momentum is no longer guaranteed. September 7th. The 5th Infantry Division attempts a crossing near Dornat. Boats push off under cover of darkness. Paddles slice quietly through black water. Then the flares rise. White light floods the river. Machine guns erupt from hidden bunkers. Boats splinter. Men scream. Some drown under the weight of full gear. Those who make the far bank cling to shallow footholds beneath steep slopes, now alive with German fire. The position becomes known as the horseshoe. And for days, American infantry fight in a shrinking perimeter under constant artillery barrage. No tanks can cross to support them. No heavy weapons, just rifles, grenades, and grit. This is not the sweeping blitz across France. This is attrition. German units, including elements of the 17th SS Panzergrenadier Division and 3rd Panzergrenadier Division, counterattack with discipline and fury. Mortars fall in precise arcs. Snipers hunt methodically. For the first time since Normandy, American soldiers feel the weight of prepared German defense. Private Keller watches a squad leader stand to throw a grenade and vanish in a burst of earth. He no longer feels unstoppable. He feels human. Patton receives reports from the front, heavy casualties, limited progress. German counterattacks intensifying. Fuel reserves dangerously low. He does not rage, he recalculates. If Dornot is too costly, shift, probe elsewhere, exploit weakness. September 10th, a new crossing attempt near Arnaville. This time, preparation is meticulous. Artillery units mass fires on suspected German positions. Smoke screens thicken the air. Engineers assemble pontoon bridges under direct fire. Sherman tanks wait impatiently on the west bank, engines rumbling like caged beasts. When the first bridge section locks into place, tanks roll forward immediately before German artillery can recalibrate. The gamble works. Armor floods the east bank. German defenders, expecting infantry isolation again, face tanks at close range. The defensive line cracks. This is Patton's adjustment. Speed alone is no longer enough. Now it is speed plus mass, pressure plus flexibility. He refuses to let the Moselle become Verdun. He keeps shifting the axis of effort, forcing Model to redeploy already thin reserves. German officers complain of exhaustion. Every time they stabilize one crossing, another appears. They begin to realize something chilling. Patton is not reckless. He is adaptive. September 12th, Nancy. American armored columns enter the city after intense fighting. German rearguards withdraw toward the fortified Metz region, one of the strongest defensive complexes in Western Europe. Concrete forts built before World War I, upgraded with modern artillery, underground bunkers, steel-reinforced casemates. This is no open field. This is a wall. Inside German headquarters, the tone changes again. No more laughter, no more dismissal. Reports describe Third Army's resilience with reluctant respect. One staff officer notes, they attack with the fury of desperation, yet with coordination we did not expect. Model recognizes the pattern. Patton does not freeze under resistance. He accelerates decision-making. He shortens the German reaction window. Even when slowed tactically, he maintains operational pressure. But pressure consumes fuel. By mid-September, supply shortages bite hard. The famed Red Ball Express convoys stretch hundreds of miles from Normandy. Truck drivers operate without rest. Tires shred on French roads, engines overheat, yet still, it is not enough. Allied High Command begins reallocating fuel north toward Montgomery's Operation Market Garden. Patton fumes privately. He believes a concentrated thrust toward the Rhine could collapse German resistance entirely. Instead, Third Army must ration gasoline. Sherman crews receive strict movement orders. Idle engines are shut down. Recon patrols shorten their range. Momentum slows, not because of German steel, but because of fuel. And the Germans feel it. Their retreat stiffens. Units that were once disorganized now find time to entrench. Fortifications near Metz are reinforced. Artillery is repositioned. The Siegfried Line looms closer. For the first time since August, the initiative wavers, not lost, but strained. September 18th, 1944. Rain falls again. Patton stands near a muddy forward command post, watching tanks bog down in soaked terrain. An aide remarks that perhaps the rapid advance was unsustainable from the start. Patton does not respond immediately. He studies the horizon. Then he says, "We did not outrun them. We shocked them." Shock fades. Steel remains. Now comes endurance. The Blitz that broke France must now break fortresses. And the Rhine, still distant, still symbolic, waits beyond layers of concrete and wire. If the Moselle was the test, Metz will be the trial by fire. September 27th, 1944. Outskirts of Metz, France. Dawn comes slowly through fog thick enough to taste. Staff Sergeant Daniel Harper of the 95th Infantry Division kneels in a water-filled foxhole, staring at a concrete structure half buried in the hillside ahead. It looks less like a bunker and more like a mountain with eyes. Then the mountain fires. A flash, a crack. An 88mm shell screams overhead and detonates behind him, flipping a Jeep into the air like a toy. Harper wipes mud from his face. "This ain't France anymore," he mutters. He's right. This is fortress warfare. Metz was not just another city. It was a pre-World War I German fortress complex, heavily modernized, 22 major forts, underground barracks, interlocking artillery positions, observation domes concealed beneath grass and concrete. The Germans had built it to stop France. Now it would try to stop Patton. Inside one of those reinforced casemates, Oberst Joachim von der Heide studies his maps. He knows Third Army's reputation. He knows their speed, but speed does not matter against steel. And for the first time since August, he believes the Americans have outrun their own logistics. He intends to make them bleed. Patton had wanted to bypass Metz. He had hoped to swing wide and drive toward the Saar River, collapse the German flank, and force the fortress to wither. But fuel shortages had already slowed his maneuver. Weather turned fields into swamps. Allied command shifted priority north. Now Metz stood squarely in his path, and Patton did something that surprised even his own staff. He attacked it head-on. October 3rd, rain begins, and does not stop. For days, then weeks, the Moselle overflows. Roads dissolve into mud rivers. Sherman tanks sink to their hulls. Supply trucks spin uselessly. Infantry advance knee-deep in freezing water. And above it all, German artillery fires methodically from hardened positions that air power struggles to touch. You could feel the war change here. This was no longer the August dash across open country. This was deliberate, grinding assault. The 5th Infantry Division assaults Fort Driant first. The fort is a maze. Underground tunnels stretch for miles. Steel doors seal blast chambers. Hidden embrasures allow German gunners to fire without exposing themselves. American troops breach outer defenses only to find themselves fighting inside a concrete labyrinth. Flamethrowers hiss. Grenades echo down tunnels. Machine gun fire ricochets off stone. The air fills with choking smoke and cordite. Men fight by flashlight in corridors no wider than hallways. At one point, 2 squads unknowingly pass each other in separate tunnel levels. Unaware Germans occupy the concrete between them. It is combat reduced to inches. Staff Sergeant Harper's company takes casualties daily, not from sweeping maneuvers, from sniper fire, from mortar rounds precisely zeroed on approach routes, from artillery that never seems to miss. Harper stops thinking about miles gained. He thinks about yards, sometimes feet, sometimes survival. German defenders feel something too: relief. The Americans are no longer ghosts in open fields. They are targets in killing zones. Oberst von der Heide writes in his report, "The enemy attacks bravely, but the fortress denies them maneuver." And for a moment, a brief, dangerous moment, German confidence returns. But Patton does not abandon pressure. He rotates divisions. He shifts artillery concentrations. He increases night operations. He begins isolating forts rather than storming them all at once. If steel cannot be crushed quickly, it can be starved. November approaches. The rain turns to sleet. Cold grips the battlefield. American infantry dig trenches in frozen mud, while German garrisons sit inside insulated bunkers with heating systems. The disparity is cruel. But Patton understands time differently. He does not need every fort destroyed immediately. He needs momentum maintained somewhere. So while the 95th and 5th Divisions pin Metz, other elements probe north and south, stretching German lines thin. The fortress becomes less a wall and more a drain. November 8th, after weeks of bombardment and attrition, cracks widen. Fort Königsmacher falls, then Jeanne d'Arc. German supply routes collapse under constant harassment. Air power finally finds breaks in weather. P-47 Thunderbolts dive low, rockets slamming into exposed artillery positions. American heavy guns mass fires in coordinated barrages. One by one, the forts go silent. November 22nd, 1944, Metz falls. The swastika flags come down. American infantry walk cautiously through shattered streets. Harper steps over rubble, boots crunching broken glass. He expected cheers. Instead, there is exhaustion. This victory was not cinematic. It was paid for in mud and blood. In Berlin, reports are read with tightening jaws. Metz was supposed to stall Third Army for months. It bought weeks. German officers who once mocked Patton's Blitz now use different words. Relentless, persistent, unyielding. He had not outrun the fortress. He had absorbed it and continued. But victory carries a cost. By the time Metz falls, the German Ardennes offensive is already forming in secret. Panzer divisions regroup. Fuel stockpiles gather. Snow begins falling in the Ardennes forest. Patton does not yet know it. But while he has been grinding down fortress steel, Hitler has been planning a counterblow meant to split the Allied line entirely. Metz was not the end of resistance. It was the calm before a storm. The Rhine is closer now, but so is the Bulge, and the next test will not be about fortresses. It will be about reaction, speed, and whether Patton can pivot an entire army faster than the enemy expects. December 16, 1944, 32 hours, Ardennes Forest, Belgium. The sky splits open. Private First Class Raymond Doyle of the 28th Infantry Division jerks awake inside his frozen foxhole as the first German artillery shell detonates behind his position. The explosion throws dirt, ice, and splintered pine into the air. Then another, then another. Within minutes, the forest becomes a furnace of thunder. Shells scream overhead in relentless waves. Tree trunks snap like matchsticks. Telephone lines fall. Radios go dead. The ground shakes so violently that Doyle feels as if the earth itself is rejecting him. He cannot see more than 30 yards through the fog and snow, and then he hears something worse. Engines. Heavy engines. Panzer engines. In the German command post near Bad Münstereifel, General Hasso von Manteuffel studies the advance map with calm intensity. This is Operation Wacht am Rhein, Hitler's last gamble. The plan is bold, almost reckless. Break through the thin American lines in the Ardennes, drive to Antwerp, split the British and American armies, force political fracture, end the war in the West. German intelligence believes Third Army is tied down near Metz, grinding against fortifications. Patton is not a factor here. Model and Manteuffel both agree. The Americans will take days, perhaps weeks, to respond. The weather will ground Allied air power. Speed will belong to Germany. The first day is catastrophic for American forces. Surprise divisions crumble. Road junctions fall. Entire battalions are cut off in snow-covered woods. Fuel dumps explode in orange fireballs. German Panthers and Panzer IVs roll forward under white camouflage netting, guns blazing. The American line bends, then bulges, then tears open. December 19, 1944, Verdun, France. Inside a Cold Stone conference room, General Dwight D. Eisenhower gathers his senior commanders. Maps show the bulge pushing west like a wound. Eisenhower turns to the room. How soon can you attack? Silence. Omar Bradley speaks cautiously. Repositioning will take time. Coordination will take time. Logistics will take time. Then Patton speaks. 48 hours. Several officers glance at him. He is not smiling. He is not posturing. He is already prepared. Days earlier, Patton's G2 intelligence officer, Colonel Oscar Koch, had warned him of suspicious German troop movements north of Third Army sector. Patton ordered contingency plans drafted, 3 separate options for rapid pivot north. When the German attack begins, those plans are already waiting. Before the Verdun meeting ends, Patton steps outside and calls his headquarters. Nickel. The code word activates the pivot. Turning an entire army is not metaphorical. It is mechanical. It is logistical. It is brutal. 250,000 men, tens of thousands of vehicles, hundreds of tanks and artillery pieces. All must rotate 90 degrees and move north in winter across narrow, icy roads. Military police work nonstop directing convoys. Engines freeze overnight. Tracks break in snowdrifts. Fuel shortages threaten to stall entire columns. Yet movement never stops. Soldiers march through sleet with frozen rifles strapped across shoulders. Tank crews sleep inside idling engines for warmth. Supply trucks crawl through the night without headlights to avoid drawing attention. Private Doyle, now retreating toward Bastogne, hears rumors. Patton's coming. No one knows if it's true, but the rumor spreads like heat in the cold. December 22nd, Bastogne is surrounded. The 101st Airborne Division holds the crossroads town against 4 German divisions. A German delegation approaches under white flag, demanding surrender. Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe responds with a single word: nuts. But defiance does not refill ammunition. It does not melt snow. It does not stop tanks. Relief must come, fast. December 23rd, weather clears. Allied aircraft roar back into the sky. P-47 Thunderbolts dive through clouds, rockets slamming into German columns. C-47 transport planes drop supplies into Bastogne's shrinking perimeter. Inside Third Army's leading element, the 4th Armored Division fights toward the encirclement. German resistance stiffens. Panzerfaust teams lurk behind snowbanks. Anti-tank guns zero in on crossroads. Every mile is contested. Sergeant William O'Hara of the 37th Tank Battalion, watches through periscope as tracer rounds streak across a frozen field. "Keep pushing," his commander shouts. The Sherman lurches forward, gun firing point blank at a German half-track blocking the road. Infantry scramble beside tanks, slipping in snow, shouting over machine gun bursts. The cold bites through gloves and boots. Blood freezes black on white ground. December 26, 1944. At 1650 hours, the lead elements of the 4th Armored Division break through to Bastogne. American tankers shake hands with paratroopers who have not slept properly in days. The siege is broken. Patton has done what he promised. An entire army turned and attacked within 48 hours. German commanders had expected paralysis. They received velocity. In German headquarters, realization settles in. Von Rundstedt admits later that the speed of American reaction shocked the high command. They believed weather and surprise would buy time. Instead, Patton denied them time again. The offensive begins to stall. German fuel shortages worsen. Allied air power returns in force. What was meant to be a decisive blow becomes attrition. Germany cannot afford. Private Doyle stands near a Sherman tank as relief columns enter Bastogne. He watches armored vehicles grind past, steel coated in ice, stars barely visible beneath grime. He does not know strategy. He knows survival. And he knows one thing clearly: the Americans did not break. The bulge shrinks through January. German divisions bleed men and machines they cannot replace. Panzer reserves disappear into the snow. Hitler's last offensive becomes his last waste. But the winter has taken its toll on both sides. And beyond the frozen forests lies the final barrier. The Rhine River, Germany's ancient shield, the last natural defense before the heart of the Reich. The German generals who once laughed at Patton's Blitz now face something worse. A commander who can pivot faster than they can plan. And a river that must be crossed. March 22nd, 1914 hours, near Oppenheim, Germany. The Rhine is black, not reflective, not shimmering, black. Lieutenant Colonel Creighton Abrams stands in darkness on the western bank, boots sunk into damp sand, staring at the wide expanse of water that has protected Germany for 1,000 years. Across the river, flares rise. German artillery flashes like distant lightning. Behind Abrams, engineers work silently beside assault boats. Wooden hulls, canvas coverings, motors wrapped in burlap to muffle noise. Men of the 5th Infantry Division sit hunched, rifles between their knees, faces smeared with camouflage that has long since turned into mud. The river smells cold, metallic, ancient. The current pulls east, into Germany. For months, German high command had assured Hitler that the Rhine would hold. It was the last natural fortress. Every bridge wired for demolition, artillery pre-sighted. Panzer reserves positioned for counterattack. Field Marshal Walter Model believed the Allies would attempt a deliberate crossing. Weeks of preparation, massive bombardment, textbook execution. What he did not expect was Patton. 2 weeks earlier, on March 7th, American forces under General Courtney Hodges had captured the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen intact. A miracle that stunned both sides. The Germans were furious. But that crossing was in 1st Army's sector. Model believed Patton would take his time, prepare properly, build up, wait. He did not understand that waiting was not in Patton's vocabulary. March 21st. Patton drives forward to inspect the river. He steps from his jeep and walks alone to the bank. A colonel beside him asks cautiously, "Sir, what are you thinking?" Patton replies, "I'm thinking the Rhine's just another river." Then he does something entirely in character. He urinates into it. A crude gesture, a private act of defiance, but symbolic. Germany's sacred barrier means nothing to him. Back at headquarters, Patton refuses to announce his plans publicly. No dramatic buildup. No extended artillery preparation. He intends to cross before the Germans understand what is happening. At 22 hours, artillery opens up along a broad front, not concentrated but dispersed. German observers struggle to pinpoint the true crossing site. At Oppenheim, assault boats begin sliding into the water, hours. Engines sputter, oars dip quietly, the current grips the first wave. Private Harold Jenkins grips the side of the boat so tightly his knuckles turn white. Tracers suddenly streak across the water. Machine gun fire erupts from the eastern bank. The river explodes with splashes. Men duck instinctively. The boat rocks violently. Someone falls into the water. Screams vanish under the current. But the boats do not turn back. They push through. On the eastern bank, German defenders scramble. Many units are second-line formations. Teenagers, older reservists. They had been told the Rhine would be defended in depth. They were not told Patton would cross tonight. American infantry hit the far bank and charge up muddy embankments under fire. Grenades arc through darkness. Explosions echo between stone buildings. By dawn, a bridgehead exists, small, fragile, alive. Engineers immediately begin constructing pontoon bridges. The work is brutal. German artillery finds the river by morning. Shells slam into the water, throwing geysers skyward. Men dive beneath floating pontoons to tighten cables. One direct hit tears apart a bridge section, sending vehicles into the river. Within hours, it is rebuilt. Patton's order is simple: keep moving. By March 23rd, Third Army pours armor across the Rhine. Sherman tanks grind over floating bridges, steel tracks rattling against metal plates. Trucks follow. Artillery pieces rumble east. The sound is mechanical thunder. For German commanders watching from scattered headquarters, the realization is sickening. The Rhine did not hold, it barely delayed. In Berlin, reports reach Hitler's bunker. He demands explanations. Model has none that matter. American forces are across in strength. Patton is not consolidating cautiously. He is driving. Again. Within days, the Third Army shatters German defensive positions in Hesse and Thuringia. Cities fall in rapid succession. Frankfurt, Wiesbaden, Kassel. German divisions retreat eastward in disarray, many without fuel. The once proud Wehrmacht now consists of fragments. Volkssturm militia, shattered panzer brigades, units that no longer resemble formations. Sergeant Jenkins, who nearly drowned in the Rhine, now rides atop a Sherman tank rolling through central Germany. He watches civilians peer from shattered windows. White flags hang from balconies. The war feels both over and not yet finished. Every crossroads might conceal a last stand. Every village might contain SS diehards. But resistance weakens daily. April 1945. Patton's Third Army overruns Buchenwald concentration camp near Weimar. Hardened soldiers walk into scenes of horror. Starved prisoners, mass graves, stacks of human ash. For many men, the war shifts from strategy to moral reckoning. The speed of the advance has exposed crimes the world barely imagined. Patton visits the camp personally. He is shaken. His staff later notes he is uncharacteristically quiet. Even a man who worshiped battle understands this is something beyond war. German generals later describe this period as collapse. Not defeat, collapse. The operational tempo was too fast. The American armor too fluid. The air superiority absolute. Von Rundstedt would later say that once the Rhine was crossed in force, organized resistance became impossible. Patton had broken the final line, not through brute force alone, but through velocity. May 7, 1945, Reims, France. German High Command signs unconditional surrender. The war in Europe ends the following day. In a quiet command tent, Patton studies the final situation map. Colored arrows stretch across France and deep into Germany. The same kind of arrows that once marked his forbidden end run in Louisiana. The same kind that carved across Sicily, across France, through the Ardennes, over the Rhine. He does not celebrate loudly. He knows something others do not. Speed won this war. Initiative broke its back. And somewhere in the German archives, men who once laughed at American armor have written something very different. They no longer laugh. Patton once said, "A good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week." From Normandy to the Rhine, he proved it. And the generals who dismissed his blitz learned too late that velocity can be more devastating than mass.